Welcome to the Hello FirstName podcast. The Hello FirstName podcast revolves around the term personalization and is brought to you by marketing author Rasmus Holing, founder of Omnichannel Institute and Chief Experience Officer at the marketing automation software company Aesop. The podcast is based on the book Hello FirstName. Each episode is based in turn on a chapter from the book, followed by a discussion of the very same chapter with an expert marketing practitioner in the following episode. As always, you can buy the book on Amazon or other bookstores. You can also choose to listen to it all for free on your favorite podcast service. You're also very welcome to download the abstract of the book for free, and all models, of course, are able to download. All downloads are sponsored by Agilic. I'll make sure to put a link to everything in the show notes. But you can always connect on LinkedIn, and I'll be happy to reply and help out. Hello, and welcome to the Hello FirstName podcast. Today we'll be discussing chapter 10 from the book Hello FirstName, namely the chapter with Moment of Truth, and together with Gianfranco Cuzziol this time. So Gianfranco, welcome to the show. I'm so happy that you could join us.
Yeah, thank you, Rasmus. A pleasure to be invited.
You have quite a resume, I must say. I mean, I was scrolling through your LinkedIn profile and see, starting back from the days where direct mail or direct marketing was the thing, and now into an age where suddenly like personalization seems to have had its renaissance. You've been working for agencies and brands, so obviously a lot of experience in the room, in the studio here with us today. So in your own words, can you tell us a bit about yourself and your career?
Yeah, this moment of being interviewed as part of your book has come along. It's been a long time coming, right? So you're right. Originally, I fell into the world of direct marketing, CRM, personalization, purely by chance. I remember responding to an advert where literally the client services director said, "I want someone with no experience in this area."
It's been a while.
He was tired of people saying no to him. You can't do that. So I went to work for that organization, then went to work for the Royal Mail, actually, where I spent a lot of time convincing FMCG brands to move some of their above-the-line budget to this new thing of using data and delivering direct, personalized content to your customers, and then fell into working agency side. So I've been really lucky for about 20 years. Worked for a variety of agencies, big, small. As a planner, I've set up CRM and analytics teams in a couple of agencies. And as you know, working agency side, you get to work with some amazing brands. So I've got to work
which
with,
is fantastic.
which I know you have. The likes of BMW, EasyJet, Compare the Market in the UK, Disney. The list goes on. Right? There probably isn't a sector that I haven't worked in. And then about 5 years ago, I got the opportunity to go to the light side or the dark side. I went to brand side. So I'd spent 20 years telling people how to do this stuff. And I now got the opportunity to do it in earnest, right? So sitting brand side, I went to work
what you
for...
preach.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I went to work for Aesop. For those people that don't know Aesop, it's an amazing Australian-based skincare, body care company. I went to be their global head of CRM. In reality, actually, I didn't go to be their global head of CRM. They brought me in 3 months to build out a business case for their new CRM vision.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that 3 months they offered me the full-time role, and I ended up being there for about 2.5 years. And at the time, Aesop was part of the Natura Group, which comprised Aesop, Avon, the Bodyshop, and Natura in Latin America. So after 2.5 years, delivering the new CRM vision, building out the business case for a new MarTech stack, starting to think about
across those brands.
Well, no, just for Aesop to start with.
Just for Aesop, yeah, okay.
Yeah. And then looking at how loyalty and subscription might work for that brand.
Yeah.
Group said, "Would you like to come and be the CRM and personalization lead for the group, for those 4 iconic brands?" So I went to do that for a year. And then for the last part of my career there, was working specifically with Avon International.
Yeah.
It was slightly different to the other group companies because they don't have a traditional D2C business model.
Yeah.
Their model is selling through reps and consultants.
Yeah.
They have 5 million reps around the world.
Wow.
So it's very successful. And the business has been around for about 130 years. So it's not a new model, but that face-to-face, high-touch business model is something that a lot of consumers in a lot of parts of the world still crave. So
very interesting. And I've seen you present again and again. So obviously following you on LinkedIn, and I see you've had multitude of speaking gigs over the last year, and I've also actually used some of your talking points within some of my own presentations.
That's very kind.
So stealing with pride.
No, but that's it. I mean, having read your book twice now, because for some reason I bought it twice. It's that good. I mean, yours is very, it's very practical, right? So you can take away chapters of your book and apply what you've learned in that book.
Yeah, that was the idea.
I guess the bits that I talk about, I talk about it in a slightly different way, because I try not to compete with experts like you, right? So I spin the story in a slightly different way, if you like. But then ultimately, I then steal from the likes of you and other greats.
Yeah, I think there's if we unite on this, I think there's a need for everybody helping each other with this, because indeed many people have burned their hands with personalization or marketing automation projects over the years. And that's really one of the reasons that I wanted to put together the framework within Hello FirstName, because I found that so many people were misunderstanding each other. And that was part of the reason for why their projects were either doomed from the get-go, or why they maneuvered through them wrong.
I guess it's because when people think about CRM and personalization, the first thing they think about is technology, right?
Yeah.
Which because the vendors have done a really good job. I mean, I'm not dissing them, right? That's their role, right? But they've done a really good job at explaining why the technology is important. But I think that without the time and effort and the thinking in advance of the technology, right?
Yeah.
So thinking about what am I trying to deliver for the customer, thinking about how I'm going to set up my business, my organization to deliver on this.
Yeah, can agree more.
When you start thinking about the technology. So having those frameworks, doing the mental legwork before thinking about technology, I think is really important.
I think one of the things that have dawned on me recently is the fact that if you look around and look at all the projects that people are doing with personalization, quite often you'd have the data people in charge. And as it is with the main model of Hello FirstName, there are two ends of the bow tie. So there's the insights end, which of course is built on customer data, and then there's the content side of things. And if you have a personalization responsible that is mainly coming from the data side, there's a risk that they'll ignore what the creative communication means, and that it still needs to be entertaining and fun and engaging, and how all that is put together, and that's half the equation. So if you only look at the data ever, I think you'll be missing out. And that's part of the reasoning that I'm trying to bring to the table here. But really, your definition of personalization, if I can start there, because I did mine, and really I found that it was not too much use, but just to get an idea of. I think it's very broad, the definition that I end up with. But I like to hear, and I like the audience to hear how you sort of see personalization on the top level. What is it really?
So I think to start with, I don't think there is a definitive what is personalization, right? So I think that if the audience starts spending the next 12 months trying to work out what is the actual definition of personalization, you'll end up not delivering personalization. Right?
Yeah, at least in the meantime.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I have this mantra that I've repeated a number of times this year, that personalization without purpose is pointless.
Yeah, I agree.
So I think that if you start from that premise and think about the customer's purpose in this, and not the capability of the technology, it's a good starting point. And that purpose can vary. Yeah. Now, that purpose might be, I want to research more about the product. I want to buy the product. I want to return the product. I want to use the product. I want to be an advocate of the product. Start thinking about that. So if you start thinking about understanding what the customer is trying to do, why they're doing it, how they're trying to do it. For me, personalization is using data to help fulfill that desire, need, or want. And I don't think it's any more complicated than that. It becomes complicated when you start thinking about how you fulfill and what needs to be fulfilled. Are you delivering an experience? Are you delivering content?
Yeah.
Are you sometimes not personalizing? Because sometimes personalizing is not personalizing. I remember when we were when I was at Aesop, when we were sending out very brand specific content, we never personalized it, never segmented it, because I know you agree with this, because
the brand is the brand.
The brand's brand, right? I'm not going to dilute what I want to stand for.
Yeah.
This is what I want to talk about. So when we talked about the cultural aspects of the brand, literature, food, music, cinema, that we just talked about it. And that's who we were. And in fact, bizarrely, some of the most the communications with the highest return that we had were the non-personalized communications.
Yeah.
Because you were just talking about the brand, and customers ended up on your website and bought product.
I agree. That's kind of a self-segmentation. So I think it goes very well for the brands that have like a high brand equity, that there's a reason for them having an audience, and that's because they are who they are. So really enforcing that and telling different sides to that story will make people interact with you, because that's why they came in the first place.
I don't think Apple do much personalization.
No, they don't.
Because you're an Apple fan, right?
Yeah.
I'm a big Leeds United fan. I don't care if the content from Leeds is not personalized to me. I just want to hear about Leeds, right? And
that's funny. My last guest, I edited the podcast today. He's a marketing director of FC Copenhagen.
Oh, really?
Just qualified for the Champions League knockout. And they're actually doing quite a lot of personalization. So in the way that, for instance, they're selling a season pass, they'll be looking into how frequent a buyer you are, looking into which part of the stadium that you normally attend, and are you the ones that buy tickets for more than yourself, and so on and so on. Using these insights, transforming them into segments, and finding out, okay, how do we tell the story about why you should buy a seasonal pass depending on who you are, making that reflect in the images and so on. So, of course, there's not a personalized way of saying how did things go in the weekend or the last game or whatever, but still they choose where to apply it and where not.
But keeping on the football theme, right? So I've spoken with, I've spent time with the marketing teams at Chelsea, Arsenal, and in fact, I used to run the CRM for Chelsea many moons ago. But Chelsea, Arsenal, and Liverpool, and so depending on the result that weekend, actually in reality, the messages that go out on a Monday are a reflection of the result and the performance.
Yeah.
Because actually they know that if they've played particularly badly and lost, they're not going to sell many shirts on a Monday, right?
Of course, yeah.
But if top player scores a hat-trick, funnily enough, the player who's wearing the shirt in the email on a Monday morning is the hat-trick.
Obviously, yeah. So don't try and celebrate something when all the fans are in mourning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So brand, I think, is important. But then ultimately, when it comes to products, of course, right, personalized. The stuff we did with, we were lucky at Aesop because Aesop doesn't have many SKUs. And I was there was probably 180 different
stock keeping units, different products for those who aren't familiar with that term.
Different products and product sizes. So it was relatively simple for me to talk about the cleanser, toner, hydrator regimen, right? 3 products. If you bought one, we could talk about the other 2. It was as simple as that.
Yeah.
We would send out content around that first product once you'd bought it. So they're very specific, even to the extent where a new customer, the welcome program that you got from the the brand
Mhm.
wasn't from the brand itself, but it was from the store that you made your first purchase,
Yeah.
because that was really important for the
Yeah.
brand to cement
Strengthening the
that
local.
relationship. Yes. Yeah. So if you say to me, should you always personalize? And I often get asked that.
Mhm.
My stock answer is yes, no, maybe, something.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
coming back to the, because I think I'm going back to the definition of personalization that you believe in and that you just stated. Really trying to figure out what's on the customer's mind. What are they currently trying to make a decision about? What are they trying to do? What do they want to avoid? And what are the motives? And what is the intent with them currently? That's pretty much what I tried to capture in the term moment of truth, which happens to be the title of the chapter that we're discussing today. So the distinction, I'm doing the distinction on the customer insights part in the bow tie of personalization between segments and moments of truth.
Yeah, I like that.
How do you see that distinction? Maybe do you have some examples from Aesop, which seems to be where there's a clear distinction, or some examples of those two types of insights?
So the way that I think this is a really nice way of framing it. I think that the
Thanks.
way that I kind of describe those insights is fat or thin, broad or narrow, right? So segments gives you that fat, kind of broad segmentation.
Yeah.
That insight about it. About
broad pencil strokes.
So I kind of know broadly that you're in Italy, right? I know roughly that you are a first-time buyer. So I kind of have that context that can help shape some of the content that I might put in front of you. But the moments of truth actually allow me to deliver that content much more specifically, right? Because there is a moment in the customer journey where you are at one of those moments of truth, right? So if I go back to the Italy examples, if I know that I'm seeing someone arrive on my website and they're coming from an Italian IP address, you know what? Naturally, I'm going to serve them the content in Italian, the products that are available in Italy, because I think that's a broad segmentation. That's a broad insight. But if I then log in, and I now tell you that it's me, Gianfranco, and you recognize who I am from my profile, then that becomes that's more of a moment of truth, because I'm getting closer to you as a customer. If I then end up looking at a particular product that I haven't bought before, then all of a sudden you know that I'm trying to make a decision or research something about that product. So all of a sudden, the content that you start to deliver to me becomes less broad. It becomes much narrower, much fatter to thinner. So I think that there are different levels of insight. If I could draw a Venn diagram, it would be two circles, but I think they overlap in the middle to help deliver to your bow tie almost.
Yeah, that's actually sort of where I envision the knot in the bow tie. Yeah. So in the ideal scenario where you have like full data traction and recording of whatever your customer is doing, and their profile data and their behavioral data and whatever, you should be able to combine the two. So in a really important moment of truth, you should be able to combine, first of all, what is the customer going through? What are they trying to achieve? What is on their mind, or maybe what should be on their mind currently, and tell that in a way that relates to the kind of segment that they belong to, and maybe couple that out with not only the message, but also the product feeds or the articles or the content feeds that will help them closer to a decision.
And I know that there's lots of technology that allows you to do that at scale these days and really cleverly. But I still think that not enough brands spend time looking at that customer journey. So actually looking at those half a dozen stages of the journey, whether it's research, awareness, purchase, repurchase, loyalty, etc. Thinking about what the customer mindset is each of those stages. And I know they have to start with quite broad brush, but have a think about the mindset, what they're trying to achieve, what the brand's role is there, right? So how do we react to that mindset and what they need to deliver. Look at the touch points that you have along that customer journey. And that's when you can start thinking about, okay, so if I know that this is what the customer is trying to do at this touch point, how do I use data to personalize that experience?
Yeah.
What can I do now? What can't I do? But could I be doing in 6 months' time?
Yeah.
So what do I need to start doing now that makes 6 months a reality? And that might be, there are a couple of data points that I'm not collecting.
Yeah, exactly.
So
which moments of truth, I mean, looking at this from an Aesop point of view, which moments of truth do you work with, or did you work with in the customer journey there? So which were sort of the most important moments of truth for Aesop, but also for the customer?
So when you look at it from a business perspective, so, we wanted as many customers as possible to become our hero customers.
Yeah.
But what the definition of a hero customer for Aesop might be different to another brand, but we wanted hero customers. So from a business perspective, we would look at, okay, so, but how does a customer move from being we call them saplings, right? A sapling customer, all the way up to a hero customer. Yeah.
Okay.
What's the route that most customers take? Yeah. So those are our moments of truth in terms of how we understood how people progress through the segments to becoming a hero customer. And so we realized that the first 30 days, first 45 days was really important.
Yeah.
For two reasons. One was when I joined, we used to do a really bad job of just trying to sell you things, whether you needed them or not. So you might have spent, I don't know, €30 on a body wash. And the next thing we might want to sell you next week is a €150 fragrance.
Okay, yeah.
You know what? I've not used the body wash much yet. I might have used it 4 or 5 times. Yeah. I'm not sure whether I want to spend 5 times the value of my first purchase.
Obviously.
But we would ignore that.
Yeah.
As do a lot of brands. I've worked with a lot, even agency side, a lot of brands that try and just say, well, what am I selling this month? Oh, I want to sell fragrance. I want to sell broadband. Let's just sell it. Not thinking about the customer. So that was one of the things we did. We started to think more closely about what we did and didn't put in front of the customer.
Yeah.
From a customer perspective, moments of truth. So I don't know if you've ever been into an Aesop store.
I don't think I have. I've been to Bodyshop.
Go into an Aesop.
Similar beauty retailers.
Not that I'm complaining about the Bodyshop experience, but if you go into an Aesop experience, as soon as you walk in there, you realize that it is an amazing brand environment. You'll be approached by one of the consultants who will welcome you into the store. They'll try and help you, try and work out what you want. They don't sell, they help, right? Which I think is a big difference. They take you to the sink, where they'll do a demonstration of the products, trying to find the right products for your skin type, apply it to your hand, tell you the order that you should be putting your product on, how much you should be putting your product on your face to get the most of the product from the product. You buy something, they create a profile for you at the point of sale, and then you walk out of the store. And if you're anyone like me, you walk out of the store and you've immediately forgotten everything that this consultant has told you, right? So
you have the impression, but not the data.
You have this amazing moment of truth in the store where you experience the brand.
Yeah.
You go home. The first email you get is trying to sell you something that you didn't want because I've just bought some body wash or something.
Yeah.
And when you go to use the cream, did they say put a fingerful on my face or a whole handful? I can't remember, right? So 30 days later, you're not using the right amount of product. You don't know whether this £80, £100 skin cream is working or not. So you kind of go, well, I'll buy a cheaper product because I don't know whether this is working.
Exactly. Yeah.
Those moments of truth aren't the best moments of truth. So one of the very simple things that we did was when you got your welcome program, as I mentioned, it was from the store that you made the purchase from.
Yeah. So personified, sent in the name of the store manager.
Really easy.
Yeah.
We send you how to how to use the product that you've just bought.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. We don't try
Pausing
and
the
sell it.
campaigns
Sorry?
or pausing the campaigns for this particular
Yeah,
individual.
you wouldn't get campaigns.
Yeah. So like a quarantine until I've, you had a feeling that I would be well on with my body wash. Or
Yeah. The how-to would be specific to the products that you've bought.
Mhm.
We would give it a period of time to elicit any feedback from you to work out whether you
Yeah.
felt that it was working or not.
Mhm.
That would be the point where we kind of go, all right, so it looks like you're enjoying the cleanser.
Check to that.
Yeah. Why not try the toner hydrator that matches that particular fragrance that for that skin type that you've bought for?
Mm.
And it's not rocket science, right?
Definitely not.
It's not. I mean, and that's why I think that sometimes brands try to be really clever with the way that they're using data, and they want to hyper personalize. I hate that term, just kind of for reference for the audience.
Yeah.
I
kind of do too.
Hyper means, if you look it up in the dictionary, it means an excessive amount of, right?
Yeah, too much, really. Yeah, it can be.
It's thinking about the basics, getting the fundamentals right, to make sure that you get those right before you try and be super clever.
I don't think you need a huge personalization engine to implement what you just described there.
No.
Basically, like small, simple flows where you look into what people have bought, and then you dwell with that, let that sink in, literally in the skin, and you collect their experience. You listen into how they feel, and then you start selling once you can do that again.
Plus, when you get to, I have worked with brands who will boast about the fact that they have over 100 different customer journeys, right? Or 150 customer journeys. I kind of go, that's a lot of customer journeys you've got set up there, right? How do you know which ones are working better than others, right? And I talk about this thing around what I call CRM lasagna.
Yeah.
Right? Where you keep piling on more and more layers of meat, cheese, tomato, pasta, right? And you're just squeezing the original flavor out of the lasagna or the programs, and you don't know which of those layers is really performing for you.
So everybody will get a big bite with a lot of each layer, I suppose. Yeah. I think your Italian descent doesn't deny itself. That's beautiful, Gianfranco.
Well, it comes out every now and again, not as an accent, but in behavior and thinking.
I'm a huge fan of lasagna, and and also the metaphor here. So and that's so you tapped into these. Let me just sort of paraphrase. So you looked at these moments of truth, trying to see, I have my starting customer here, I have my hero customer here, and how can we move the customer from basically one value segment to the next, where each sort of change of segment would be a moment of truth, where they either do it or they don't, so to speak.
Although yes, right. So, but it's funny, we never actually thought about how can I move this customer from one segment to the other. In reality, the way that I framed it was that there were certain behaviors that we wanted to recognize and influence. Yeah? So, broad brush, right? Segmentation. We had lots of customers who were gifting customers.
Yeah.
So they just came once a year, bought the product for friends and family, and wouldn't come back for a year. Now, what do you do with those, right? Because you don't want to oversell to them, because you don't want to lose the gifting momentum, right? They've been coming for the last 5 years, spending a shed load of money in the store, online. So how do you treat those? Yeah. Well, you might suggest to them that there are other gifting occasions during the year. Father's Day, Mother's Day.
Yeah, could be other people that could be needing a gift.
Yeah. You might want to suggest that they gift for themselves, right? Reward yourself. Or you then use those gifters as a Trojan horse to get new customers.
Yeah.
Because what do you do with the gift recipient?
Yeah.
All right. So there's a whole pool of customers that we probably don't know anything about. So how do we get the gift recipient to become a direct customer of the brand?
And did you do that? How did you?
One thing that we did in the second year that I was there was that back to the brand values of literature, etc. So the 4 gift kits, each gift kit had a short story that was associated with it.
Mm.
And you could access that story to download or to read online or to listen to by scanning the QR code on the side of the gift box.
Yeah, fantastic.
Right,
Yeah.
so all of a sudden, you get this gift, you scan the QR code, it takes you to the story that's an extra present, if you like.
Yeah. Of symbolic value, I suppose, a storytelling, extra content.
Yeah. You come to the website where you can access how to use the product, and maybe you'd like to register your details for newsletters.
Yeah.
So again, there's another way of kind of using that way of using that moment of truth, or to kind of get.
I think that's an insight that many brands out there could be using. So, I mean, we were talking about football earlier. So, I mean, people generally don't buy one football ticket, but who else is coming along with them? Who's tagging along? And how can we get a hold of those people? We're working with the Danish Royal Theatre. Same thing. Nobody buys one ticket. And I know for a fact that Pandora are working with a specific segment called male gifters. So tend to be male anyway. So people who are normally just buying the gift. And really, it strikes me as odd that not more brands are utilizing this way that you just described of connecting with whomever is at the other end of this interaction.
And even brands who the product is bought in an anonymous environment, right? So a supermarket, you buy something in the supermarket. We talk about omnichannel, right? You talk about omnichannel. The one. But when we talk about omnichannel, we kind of talk about physical and digital, and we talk about the communications that you might get sent and how seamless the experience is. But we often forget about the one thing that travels all the way through all these different omnichannel or multi-channel environments is the product itself, right? So you've got this thing that everyone is carrying around, or opening, or using on a daily basis, and it seems to me like it's ignored as an opportunity,
as a communications channel, basically.
Right? I remember, this is years ago now, right? So I helped English wines do their first direct-to-consumer campaign.
Mm.
And the most successful piece of collateral that we had was not the amazing direct mail piece that we created that was personalized to the individual. It was the flyer, the order form that was in the wine box that was delivered, right? Because you've got a free ride. You talk about paid channels and owned channels. That's one of the owned channels that you have. Yeah,
exactly. Is already there in the hands of the consumer.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you bring that up. I have a personal subject matter related, I wouldn't say depression, but I'm disappointment that and I drink my fair share of wine, I think, and I've seen no wine merchant do what you suggest there, delivering me the extra. I mean, it's symbolic value. Why don't you deliver me those conversation pieces that I can speak out loud when I'm serving the wine for my friends, and I can sound like more of a connoisseur than the amateur that I really am. This symbolic value, I mean, it's half the pleasure of wine. It's knowing where the grapes are from and the story with the farmer and the producer and so on and so on. And yet I haven't seen a single wine merchant doing this. So I'm so glad you bring that up.
Yeah. I know. I remember during COVID, my wife and I attended a couple of virtual wine tasting sessions.
Yeah, I became really skilled at wine tasting during COVID as well.
Yeah. Well, wine drinking, I'm not sure about wine tasting, but I remember that you kind of, I don't know whether this is a male thing, right? But you kind of want to feel as if you know what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, I do.
So when the sommelier is on the other end of the camera going, can anyone, what can you smell? What's the bouquet you're getting from this wine, right? I'm immediately on Google, kind of going, what should I? I'm getting, tarmac and blackcurrant.
Yeah.
Because there is something about that, isn't there? I mean, I remember doing some work with an agency where we were doing some work with a single malt whiskey.
Yeah.
And they knew very little about the customers. But we kind of felt that they kind of fell into 2-3 different segments. You had the novice who was trying single malt for the very first time, to the scholars who actually knew a lot about the pairing, history,
process probably, yeah.
But they kept it to themselves. And then there was what we call them now, the show-offs, right? Actually, you know what? They actually didn't care about the whiskey itself, right?
Care about themselves.
They wanted to talk about the fact that they spent 150 euros on this single malt, right? And they knew a little about it, so they could boast about it to their friend. And so what we did was actually we looked at the content that people were interacting with through email, on the website, and we began to position customers so that we could talk to them in the right way. And we played it back to them because we took some customers and went, we think you're a scholar, we think you're a novice, are we right? So we kind of fine-tuned the model, but it helped us to deliver the right content.
So basically a segmentation of why are these people into whiskey drinking at all
100%.
in the first place, and then aligning the messaging with the particular value that they were getting from it, knowing that it wasn't the whiskey itself necessarily, but moreover the social, social proof or well-being or storytelling or the taste for some, obviously. I think that's very very interesting and spot on. So I'm going to change the topic a bit. So there's a lot of talk about AI at the moment, and particularly generative AI, but also AI in general. How do you see AI in determining the moment of truth for B2C customers?
Well, yeah, I know. I think you're similar minded to me that we've been using AI for years, right? So in the world of 10 years ago, we talked about big data, right? Then we talked about predictive analytics, propensity modeling, right product in the right place at the right time from an inventory perspective. And it's just machine learning, right? It's just, clever use of algorithms to determine that. So I think we'll get even faster, slicker at it, because I think that, the technology is there, the way that we can, even 5 years ago, I think legitimately you could say, well, I can't get my tech stack to talk to my data in these 3-4 silos, and I can't then deliver that through a communication channel.
Which is why the data people were in charge of the personalization projects, which is fair.
And the data engineers. So I think that those days are gone now. I think there isn't much excuse to do that. So I think we can do it much more at scale these days, faster, identify those trigger points, those behavior clues that our customers and prospects,
signs of intent.
I think the big thing is generative AI, but not some. But I guess from a front end and a back end perspective, I think that generative AI will now just make it a lot easier for us as marketeers to almost generate the content that we need to get closer to that one-to-one vision of delivering content that is very specific to you, Rasmus, to you, Gianfranco, right? Just become a lot slicker to do that, and actually probably slicker in terms of being able to very, very quickly almost determine. So most marketing automation platforms work on the basis of journeys. And you start off with a very, I've got an A, B, and C bits in my journey, and the content might vary depending on who you are, what you're doing. I think what Gen AI might allow us to do is almost, we won't have journeys, right? We'll just have a generative AI piece and predictive analytics capability that will create a unique journey for you, Rasmus, right? Because I know you, I know where you're starting off, and it doesn't matter in what direction you go, I will deliver the right experience for you and your particular needs. I think that's where that's where we'll get to. And
Yeah. So you'll more like be determining or deciding on how often do we want to interact with customers, or even let that up to the AI to decide. So we want to boost our CLV for these particular types of customers. We have these calls to action. We have these products. You figure out the rest, basically.
yeah, but also I think allow the machine, yeah, to sometimes to work out when is the right time for a human interaction.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think that would be the best thing for this particular individual, and that might be I don't want my chatbot to be run by AI. I want to talk to a physical person. At this point in the customer journey, I'd like to suggest that you come into a store,
Yeah,
and experience the brand,
give you a full makeover,
sit on the sofa, right?
Yeah.
Watch the 88-inch TV,
smell the fragrance.
smell the fragrance, right?
Mm.
We haven't got to the stage of aroma vision just yet, right? So I think that human interaction, bizarrely, Erasmus, it might get to the stage in a very horrible way. Where but the personal interaction almost becomes only for the elite, right? So we get to the stage where return on investment is so important that we kind of go, you know what, 90%, 95% of people, they're just going to go through the machine, because we'll churn out the revenue that we need. But if you're the other 5% who are willing to pay for that personal experience, you know what, I'll let you talk to a human being.
Exactly, you can meet a human.
I mean, that would be a terrible, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's.
I think there's already, already people are using AI or just simple rules basically to figure out how they can optimize also the cost of communication to a particular customer, and who is worth it with a high touch shopping suites, as in the case of for instance, Nordstrom in the US. So who gets invited to the personal shopping suites where you are having like personal service and people are dressing you up in all fancy clothes? Obviously, they aren't inviting everybody there. So I think this is already taking place to one extent or the other.
Do you remember that service called Clout with a K?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, who had the most clout?
Yeah. I don't know if Clout's still about, but I remember that, there were certain
like a social index of how well known you were on the internet, how big an influencer were you.
Certain restaurants that when you tried to make a dinner reservation,
if you had clout, you got the table.
The first thing they looked at was your clout score.
Yeah.
Right?
There are platforms gauging this within the influencer marketing space. Actually, I personally invested in one of them called Woomio. So we're running out of time, Gianfranco. So actually, I have one last question. Quick. Yeah, I have one last question. We've been talking a bit more than 40 minutes. One last question. Your personal favorite example of personalization that you've experienced as an individual?
Two. Right, I'm going to give you two.
Fantastic.
There's an Italian restaurant in York. Eaten there a few times. Have their loyalty card. Picked up some points. But the most amazing experience that I had with them was I was walking past the restaurant one evening. The general manager saw me through the window, came out, invited me in for a free glass of limoncello. Right?
Yeah.
That is the ultimate level of personalization, where the general manager, no data, just the data that's in his
and
mind.
A human being, even.
A human being, right? But I think that's where we aspire to get to as a brand. The second example is an invitation I got to have my car serviced. So the car brand, the dealership, sent me an email saying, it's time for your car service.
Mm-hmm.
We've booked you in for Friday, 10 a.m. on the 17th. We've arranged for a courtesy car for you to have during the day. And while you're here, we'll check the roof rack that we fitted for you last year to make sure it's all secure.
Beautiful.
Right? Beautiful, right? That never happened. but that's the dream that I sold to a well-known brand, car retailer. Yeah. And they still haven't done it. They're still talking to me about the car that I haven't owned for 3 years.
Yeah.
So
definitely so much wasted potential out there. So Gianfranco, thank you so much for your time and your presence here. And I'll be looking forward to also following you in the future and the next time we meet.
Cool.
So for the audience, I'll say I hope you enjoyed this. Remember that all models and even a written abstract from the book can be downloaded. And I'll make sure to put a link to that in the show notes. And I hope you'll join us next time, which will be a more classic audiobook chapter. Thank you for listening. And Gianfranco, once again, thank you for joining.
Thank you, Rasmus. Bye, everybody.
Thank you for listening in on this episode of Hello FirstName. Remember that all models and even a written abstract of the book are available for download. You'll find the link in the show notes.
In our next episode, which is a classical audiobook chapter, we'll be listening to Chapter 11, Personalization in Marketing Automation. What is the value you can get? What are the 3 primary value drivers? And what characterizes the level of beginners, intermediates, and leader companies?